across the area. We are dealing with the potential at a strong storm that is moving through parts of Panola into sections of Harrison County right now. And there is a potential that this could become tornado warned. And in that situation, we would have to stream live both on KETK and Fox 51. But again, here's just an overview. These storms are moving from west to east right now, and no warnings are in effect, but we could see that change here in the near future. We'll go ahead and zoom in to some of the areas of concern right now, and it's moving through the Tatum vicinity. That's near Martin Lake along State Highway 43, and there's your little notch. That is of greatest concern to the National Weather Service and us, but let's go ahead and examine the storm just a little bit, and we'll show you where the area of concern is. And it's very, very weak rotation at this point, but it's enough to really note something that's going on. So it would be in this area, a bright red. There's really not a color change. That's a good sign. We do not want this to become warm, but we'll continue to keep a close eye on it. Let's go ahead and show you another product, and there we go. The main circulation is probably moving parallel along State Highway 43. Eventually, this storm is going to make its way into the Darko area before crossing the Harrison and Panola County line. But that's what we're seeing right now, so we will need to keep a close eye on it. Otherwise, most of the area, your severe weather threat is over at this point. We have some heavier showers out near Tyler and White House, but those storms are all elevated in nature, so the chance of them becoming severe are not all that great. And anywhere to the west of Tyler, Lindale, even Kilgore and Longview now, your severe weather threat is significantly decreasing at this time. But nonetheless, a line of storms. We could see brief spin-up tornadoes out in front of it. We could also see damaging straight-line winds. In deep East Texas, not a lot going on right now in Nacogdoches and Lufkin. Some heavier showers and storms moving through that area. We'll probably see wind gusts anywhere from 30, maybe up to 40 miles per hour, but we're not expecting anything super significant here within the next 30 minutes. But as these storms have been cycling all morning, they'll get real strong, and then they'll weaken, they'll get real strong again, and then they'll weaken again. So it's kind of been a cycle. What we have right now is a very high shear environment. If you walked out the door this morning, you probably noticed it was windy before that line of showers and thunderstorms moved through. That's a sign of a high shear environment, and the shear is so strong, it's overcoming the lack of instability that we have. So a lot of these storms you see on your screen right here, they continue that cycle of strengthening, weakening. There's really a big imbalance with these showers and thunderstorms, and that's what's kept at least most of them sub-severe. But nonetheless, we still have those storms out there, and they do bear watching. Let's go ahead and put a storm track on this, and you can see how these storms have weakened through Cass County. No more warnings are in effect there. But just looking at some of the arrival times, we will track the first storm from the most significant part, the one that I'm most concerned with right now. And if we track this off to the northeast, these are moving at about 50 miles per hour. They're getting close to out of our area. So if we track that, Beckville, your arrival time's at about 9:20. That's 2 minutes away from now. Oil City, that's at about 9:48. And then as you get into Shreveport and Bossier, that's going to be after 10 o'clock. So we still have some time for these warnings to materialize, but it doesn't look like the National Weather Service office in Shreveport is in a hurry to issue that warning. But once again, as we look at any correlation coefficient here, not much going on. Anytime you see different sizes of, we'll call it debris, raindrops, you end up seeing a lower correlation coefficient product. When it's just rain, it's the red you see on your screen right here. And that's just not the case at this point. But that being said, Harris Chapel, we do have a couple of areas right along the line of the thunderstorms where we're probably seeing a few branches, maybe a few leaves being blown in the wind there. So that's probably what the radar is picking up. The blues, we do not want to see the blues, but the reds, that's just plain old rain at this point. But back to radar. We continue to see the showers and thunderstorms moving from west to east, and they will eventually cross Gill and Highway 59 right there and Highway 43. But this will continue to move off to the east, and you can see Carthage in the path of the storm, Ryderville in the path, Walnut Grove in the path of the storm, Horton there and northern Panola County, we are also in the path of the storm. So if you're watching us digitally, that either means you have the app or you're watching us from your computer on KETK or fox51.com. If you don't have the East Texas Storm Team app, that's just an easy way for you to get weather warnings. And if a warning were issued for this storm, it doesn't look like it would appear on your phone, but it doesn't look like right now that that's going to be the case unless, you know, the National Weather Service has made any corrections, Andrew, to their thinking on this storm. Okay, so no discussion, and we're really not seeing anything, you know, that's just eye-opening, but often these lines of thunderstorms that produce these tornadoes, it can be quite a messy radar presentation. If a squall line has formed, then it's very unlikely that you see that tornado on the ground if you're outside looking at it from, let's say, Gill or something like that, or Grand Bluff. It's likely that you won't see it, so not worth chancing it. But I will say it is almost guaranteed that you're going to see some very heavy rain here in the not too distant future, and that would include Marshall, Carthage, where the rain has not quite reached you. If you live along Caddo Lake, just to the east of Jefferson, near Wescombe, and places like that, you're going to be seeing this heavy rain very soon. But there's your heavy rain, there's your line. Behind this line, we're just seeing some regular old rain, maybe a rumble of thunder or two. We actually heard that at our studios just about 15 minutes ago here in South Tyler. So you might hear a rumble of thunder if you live in our western counties, but areas to the west of, we'll call it this line right here, your severe weather threat is over. But if you live in front of this line, I'm still watching for the potential of damaging winds and possibly a brief spin-up tornado. So we'll put this in motion one more time, and I want to get you to these temperatures because that will really help represent where the unstable air is at this point. So there are your thunderstorms. They continue to progress east and northeast at this hour, and out to the west, just regular old raindrops. But as we look at Futurecast, it does look like these storms will start to make their way out of the area here pretty soon. There's the line. This model's doing a great job of showing us where the line is at this point. But as we advance this over into time, we will continue to see those showers and thunderstorms push off to the east, and then we're much drier. But look at the presentation that we're going to see in Arkansas and Louisiana. This is something you don't want to see, and it does look like they'll probably have several tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings. It's almost like a derecho is going to get going for the deep south a little later on today. But that's not our concern. Our main weather threat is from now until about noontime. So that's some good news there. We'll go ahead and walk you through the timeline forecast. And as you can see, most of the severe weather threat is over for our western counties. It ended about 2 hours ago. But as we look at our severe weather threat in our timeline, we are seeing that from 4 to 7 o'clock, which did verify our western counties were seeing that threat. And the threat for our central counties, more so in the eastern half of this region, including Longview, Marshall, and Linden, until about 10 o'clock tonight. After about 10 o'clock, we should be able to give you the all clear from the severe weather. But if you live in this yellow region, I would say from now until about noontime, that is where your main threat of severe weather is going to be. Now, the tornado watch that has been issued for our eastern counties, so you guys will be on the hook for the possibility of a brief spin-up tornado or two. So you need a way to get that weather information. East Texas Storm Team app, or follow us online on the web, social media, what have you. But there's your watch. This is the tornado watch. It was out through about 7 o'clock for our western counties. It's been set to expire now, but as we look at our eastern counties, it does look like these have been issued through 1 o'clock. And I would expect that another row of counties here will be able to be dropped from those tornado watches. That would include Gregg and Rusk County. And then an hour after that, we should be able to drop Cass, Marion, Harrison, and Panola County, assuming these storms behave themselves and continue to make their way out of the region. But As I mentioned, if you live out to the west, that would include places like Tyler, Canton, even Longview now and Gilmer. We can give you the all clear. I just don't anticipate any additional severe weather at this time. And then Trinity, Angelina County, we continue to deal with that. Some showers and thunderstorms right now, but you guys are not under that tornado watch. Now, St. Augustine, Sabine County, it always seems when we're tracking storms through there, we see a warning. So I want you to be on your toes in Sabine County, regardless if it's a shower or not. We'll have to keep a very close eye on you folks because you're under this tornado watch until about 1 o'clock. And Andrew, meteorologist Andrew Samet, one of the smartest guys I know, has been here most of the morning with me. And Andrew, I did not really see anything in particular in that storm that looked, it was eye-opening, that you could issue a warning on. What are you seeing? Is there any additional details that we've missed?
Yeah, Carson, we've been looking at this line of storms for the past several hours, and there's been brief signs of rotation trying to tighten up. But as with the case of these squall lines, typically you get an area of rotation and then it goes away pretty quickly. And that's just what we've been seeing throughout the morning hours. And the real reason for that is because there's an imbalance between the wind shear that we need for severe thunderstorms and then the instability that we need for severe thunderstorms. So we really got to get those ingredients together in order to get the greatest tornado threat, and they just haven't been able to match up really, which of course has been some good news. Now, we have seen a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings. Those have been mostly for straight line to wind concerns upwards of 60 miles per hour. Currently, we've got none of that right now. Here's a look at the radar. Again, we'll kind of go down here storm by storm. We'll start in the northern half of the line into portions of Marion County and southern Cass County. This is over by you in McLeod and Rambo. Also towards the Monterey and Gray communities, expect your winds to maybe pick up a little bit over the next couple of minutes here. But again, this activity, nothing severe. Let's take a look at velocity, and I do not see any rotation with this area of storm, so that's some good news. We'll go down over towards the Baldwin area, and you can see where the reds and the greens kind of match together there near Baldwin. Let me draw it out for you. Again, that is areas of potential broad rotation. It's not tight. It's not nearly tight enough to trigger a tornado warning, but that's just one of the many areas that we will continue to watch. In fact, that area that you saw of the broad rotation, which is around the Baldwin area, that is away from the storms themselves. So that's a little bit off place from the storms, which indicates that, again, the rotation isn't really that tight. So just a couple of areas to monitor. Baldwin, even though there's no tornado threat or severe thunderstorm threat, still expect your winds to pick up over the next few minutes and that rain to get quite heavy. It's heavy over you right now in the Pope City area down towards Gainesville, likely having some lightning with this as well. So just make sure to be inside as these storms push on through. Even if they're not severe, they still have a lot of lightning with them and very heavy rain. So stay off the roads if you can until this main line of storms pushes through your area. Down towards Marshall, we are also getting in on some of the heavy rain as well. Take a look at velocity and not seeing any areas of rotation in Marshall. So that's some good news. Just some heavy rain and some potentially gusty winds upwards of 40 miles per hour. Potentially moving into the Marshall area. So winds are definitely going to be stronger as this line pushes on through. It's just that most of these wind gusts are going to be below the severe limits. However, the 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts still can knock down a few weaker trees out there. So just, again, keep that in mind. But nothing severe with that. Let's take a look further down to the south towards you in Gill. You may notice your rain showers are starting to pick up, but some heavier rain is right off to your west. So expect that rain to pick up. Let's take a look at velocity again, and once again, not really seeing any areas of rotation that is concerning for any tornadoes. So we'll continue to hope for that. Now let's go over towards Tatum, and this is the area that the National Weather Service was watching very closely over the past few minutes here. Let me try to put the radar in motion. And you can see there was a brief moment where there was some stronger rotation right to the west of the center point area, just coming out of the Henderson. Again, this was about 15 to 20 minutes ago. That's what they were watching really closely. It wasn't tight enough to indicate that a tornado was on the ground, but it was getting pretty close. But it did kind of disappear as it moved across the center point area. So in terms of a severe weather threat with that storm, I think it's pretty much over. But again, the storms are still on the relative stronger side, capable of producing 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And you can notice some of the purples there over near Sterrett Hill and Harris Chapel, and then heading towards Grand Bluff. because we're so close to the radar and it's still being able to pick up that really heavy precipitation, that could be also some small hail heading towards Sterrett Hill and Grand Bluff. But in terms of a severe weather threat there, take a look at velocity. And not a whole lot going on. You see a couple of pixels of green, but that's not really any indication of rotation, or at least rotation that is strong enough to produce any severe weather concerns. But again, we'll continue to track this. But Grand Bluff, Sterrett Hill, the Horton area, again, expect your rain to pick up in its intensity, and for a couple of rumbles of thunder, and for the wind to pick up in intensity as well. Let's keep going down south here. Over near Holly Springs, north of Appleby, heading towards Garrison, Arlem, Caledonia, and Timpson. Again, expect your rain to pick up over the next few minutes here. This rain is quite heavy. A couple of lightning strikes with there south of Mount Enterprise is where some of the heaviest of the rain is. Switching it over to velocity, and there's a very broad area of rotation near Appleby. Let me see the reflectivity on that. And again, that rotation was located right around this area. And as you can see, it's not matching up with where the reds are. So maybe some very broad rotation, but nothing really too concerning there. Again, let me just take the velocity again. And you can see where the greens and the reds are kind of close together, but it's not really a tight area of that rotation. So let's head further down south along the line here. Nacogdoches, you're getting in on some of the heavier rain right now. This will be over you in Plainview, Melrose, and Martinsville within the next 10 minutes or so as this line of storms continues to track off to the east. Or yes, to the east. And then to the Lufkin area, again, you can see some heavy rain that's moving through the Durant, about to move into Redland, and at least the west side of Lufkin will start seeing the rain starting to pick up. Take a look at velocity, and we're kind of in a radar dead zone now, so let me switch over to the radar at Fort Polk in Louisiana, and still not really showing us anything too significant there. So heading down towards the Groveton area, there's actually a little bit more in the way of lightning with this storm. So again, that could indicate that this activity near Groveton is a bit on the stronger side of things. But let's take a look at what the rotation looks like, and we're not really seeing much in the way of rotation there. So just a couple of areas to be watching over the next couple of hours here as this line continues to track off to the east. Out behind this main line of storms, now once this line moves through, your severe weather threat is over. But notice over in Henderson, the city of Henderson, there's still a lot of lightning with this activity. So there is still some thunderstorms out behind the line. And although they may be capable of producing small hail if they can get strong enough, they are likely to stay below severe limits. Over by Kilgore and towards Friendship and Liberty City, you are also seeing some heavy rain. Down towards Tyler, Athens, Canton, some lingering showers out there, up towards Mineola, Quitman, and Sulphur Springs, but your severe weather threat is over. So we'll continue to track these lines. We have a few showers also developing out ahead of this main activity in San Augustine and Sabine counties, but this activity is not having any lightning with it, so not a concern as well. But we'll have to watch for anything that can develop out ahead of the main line because that could increase the tornado potential. Most of the forecast models that we've been looking at, if there's any isolated supercells that develop, it's likely over into Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. But certainly something we'll keep an eye on. As we head over the next couple of hours, though, we get later and later on in the morning, Carson, we're going to see the instability increase a little bit, especially as this line is exiting the area. So we're going to need to continue to watch this for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you live along the Texas-Louisiana border, you need to be weather aware at least over the next 2, maybe 3 hours, because that tornado watch, remember, it runs through 1 o'clock. And anytime when you have a tornado watch, tornado conditions are favorable for development. Doesn't mean we have a tornado, which we don't, but conditions are favorable. So let's go ahead and walk you through some of these arrival times. And this isn't for one severe thunderstorm or tornado warning or anything else. It's just the rain and the strong winds that we're going to see out ahead of this line here. And as you can see, Redland at 9:36, Garrison, as Andrew mentioned, here in about 3 minutes, Carthage here in about 3 minutes. So it's closing in on Carthage, and Carthage is about the center point of Panola County. Now, how the map drawers drew counties in West Texas, this is somewhat true for East Texas as well. It takes about 30 miles for you to get from one side of the county to another side of the county. So I would guess Carthage, you're probably 15 to 20 miles away from the Louisiana border, and that's what's reflected here on this track. Timpson 943, Wascom at 951, Tenaha at 954, Greenwood at about 10:02, and that's just the leading edge of the line. Now, if a tornado were to form, it would involve the leading edge of that line. But as I mentioned before, we've got no warnings. We don't even have any severe thunderstorm warnings because of wind that have been issued. But we are continuing to monitor this line as it pushes further and further off to the east. Now, temperature-wise, this is pretty impressive and watch-worthy here. We've got temperatures out ahead of the line of the storms in the 70s, but we're in the 50s and 60s in our western counties. So we've got colder and more stable air moving into our western counties. That being said, out to the east, it's a little bit of a different situation. Hemphill, Center, Nacogdoches 70. Prime time for storms right now because of the 70s we have in the region. So the instability that you're going to find out ahead of this line, that is where you're going to see the highest potential of a brief tornado to spin up and those stronger winds. And everybody's seeing the wind shear. Just look at all those red arrows that are flowing into the storm. That is a strong southerly wind, which is why we were so warm yesterday. That's why your allergies were bad yesterday, because it was transporting all that Gulf moisture and all that pollen into the area. Now, pollen's not affecting these storms. It's just a point made on the pollen count, but the Gulf moisture is affecting these storms, and we've got plenty of Gulf moisture. We just don't have enough instability with these storms occurring at this time in the morning to really see significant and widespread severe weather at this point. So let's get you right back to radar. There were a couple of things that I wanted to point it out here that at least are worth watching at this point, especially here in Panola County. Now Nacogdoches County, that looks interesting. We'll get to that here in just a second. But Gill along Highway 59, that was the same storm that the National Weather Service chat, they told us, hey, we're watching this storm, so be ready just in case a warning is issued. Well, it doesn't look like there's any indications that a warning is going to be issued for the line now. It pulsed up real quick and then it tamed back down. It tried to pulse up about a minute ago real quick, and now it looks like it's taming back down. So what we're looking for here are any signs of rotation, as Andrew had mentioned, and it doesn't look like that's the case right now. I mean, you see reds, you don't see any greens and reds touching each other. Now, a little radar lesson for you from the meteorologist. Green, that means your velocity of the raindrops moving towards the radar is strong if you're seeing that brighter green. If you're seeing that brighter red, that means that winds are strong going away from the radar, and that's being picked up on our velocity products. But once again, not a lot going on right now, which is good news, because the last thing we need would be a tornado warning to be issued. We'll look at that Nacogdoches County storm real quick, since I just noticed it, and Andrew was alluding to this earlier. Nacogdoches County, you guys are fair game for this severe weather, which is something that we've got. We don't have severe weather, but we do have heavy rain. We have the potential for severe weather there. Total lightning strikes just in this frame alone, it's 3. So these storms, we don't have a lot of instability to work with. Now, as they move east into Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama a little later on today, they will have the instability, since the storms will be occurring during the late afternoon, evening, and overnight tonight. That's where we could have a significant severe weather outbreak. But some of the heaviest rain is moving through Nacogdoches County at this point, and that will move off to the east. Now, one thing we have really been in need of over the last several months, almost 6-7 months now. Andrew.
Hey, it's got a report of some down power lines near Appleby with the storms that are just moving through, and they're going to work up a severe thunderstorm warning for that.
Okay, so we've got a forthcoming severe thunderstorm warning near Appleby. That's in Nacogdoches County, and that's because those winds are strong enough that we've got some down power lines. So here in the next few minutes, they'll issue that warning here. So let's get you back to that Nacogdoches County storm. Andrew and I have pointed it out. And you can see some heavy rain moving through the eastern part of the county. This will eventually move into Shelby County before it exits us off to the east into parts of Louisiana, crossing the Toledo Bend Reservoir. But there's Appleby right there. That's where we got that report. Any specific area, Andrew, where we saw those down power lines, or does it just say Appleby?
It just says Appleby.
Okay, just says Appleby. So we just had a line of storms move through Appleby. Looks like it's along U.S. Highway 59, and it looks like they just drew the warning box. So let's go ahead and show you that. And again, there's the warning box. It does include the city of now Carthage. Well, actually, Carthage, you guys are on the edge of the polygon there, but Garrison and Timpson, you guys are certainly in there. Garrison, that's in northeastern Nacogdoches County, and Timpson, you guys are in western Shelby County, northwestern Shelby County, I should say. And what does the text read? Is it 60-mile-per-hour winds?
Yes, 60.
60-mile-per-hour winds. Did they tag it to where possible?
They did not, no.
Okay, cool. So that's a good sign. There's not a lot of signs of rotation. We've been so focused on the rotation aspect of these storms that the damaging wind gusts, that's why this warning is issued. So the tornado threat's relatively low, which is good news. But let's go ahead and track this storm for you because it will be moving into Garrison and Timpson here in the not too distant future. So from about Carthage, you guys will see heavy rain in Carthage, but it doesn't look like if you live north of town that you're going to be in this warning here. But we'll track this at about 50 or so miles per hour, and you can see Tenaha, that's about 9:57. They're along Highway 59 there. Center at about 10:01. That's the county seat of Shelby County. You guys, yeah, you're in the warning. And then Logansport, that is right along the Toledo Bend Reservoir, I believe. And that is about 10:15. Mansfield there in the western Louisiana, 10:37. So the good news is, notice the time. It's 9:41. Compare these times. If you live in Center, this is probably getting to you within the next 20 minutes. Now, 30 minutes after that, your severe weather threat is over, which is good news. We can get this all out of here and we can go with our afternoons, because once these storms move through, it does look like our severe weather threat will decrease significantly. But that just in, severe thunderstorm warning has been issued for southern Panola, parts of Shelby, even San Augustine County is included too, and including parts of Nacogdoches County because of those down power lines that we alluded to. Now, one product I do want to check are those severe weather threats, just to see if we have any wind reports right now. And it doesn't look like we do. But again, that damage report was by Appleby, and that's moving off to the east. It does look like just to the north of Garrison, there's a small area of concern. So we'll query just to show you what we're seeing. And that does match up to our severe limits. But just know, with some of the reports we've seen, there was a transformer that was blown in Tyler yesterday. And that was non-thunderstorm induced winds that caused that. It created some power outages near Holly Tree in Tyler. So we've been under the stress of some pretty strong winds here over the last 24 or 48 hours. So it wouldn't surprise me if we have more trees coming down because of the weather that we've seen really over the last week or so. And that goes for areas affected by last week's tornado. Structures may not be as strong, power lines may not be as strong, and trees might not be as strong since we did see a lot of rain last week and we've seen that wind. But we'll continue to keep our eyes on that storm. As I mentioned, we have seen some pretty good rain across the area. Let's go ahead and check out our 24-hour rain amounts. Now, this isn't enough to completely smash the drought, but it has been enough to at least dampen the ground, so we will take what we can get, right? Beggars can't be choosers with how little rain that we've seen so far. So we'll query some of these totals out for you. And it's really our western counties that have been the breadwinner as far as the rain goes. That's where you see all that green. And you can see near Wills Point, we've seen about a ½ inch of rain. Hopkins County, we've seen about 3/4 of an inch. Near Gun Barrel City, we'll query that one there for you, just under 3/4 of an inch. And then where my aunt lives, near Wills Point, about 85/100 of an inch of rain for them. And this is all beneficial because this is the area that was highlighted in the severe drought that came out with the update last Thursday. Now, we will have an update for tomorrow, but it's not going to include the rain that we are currently seeing. It will include the rain that has occurred since last week, though. So that's good news, but we still have a long ways to go. We would need multiple multi-inch rain events for us to really put a dent in that drought. Otherwise, we have not seen enough rain for places like Tyler and Longview so far. You can see anywhere from 1/4 of an inch, maybe up to 85/100ths of an inch there to the northeast of Longview. And again, we'll have to watch out for the possibility of rain because we still have more rain that's out in the area right now. But once again, some good rain coming down. We need more, but we will certainly take what we can get as far as that rain goes. And there's your line of storms. So we will continue to watch that as these track off to the west. But before I send it over to Andrew, just to recap, our one lone warning on the map was because of some down power lines that we saw in Appleby, just to the northeast of Nacogdoches. That's where you're seeing that bowing segment in the line. Anytime you have a bowing segment, that typically means that winds are pretty strong, and that's moving through Timpson, eventually into Tenaha, and then into the swampy region, the bayou region of the Toledo Bend Reservoir, where you see that blue on the map right there, just to the east of Carthage, Tenaha, to the east of Highway 59 there. Andrew?
All right, so we will continue to track this storm over the next few minutes here. Again, it expires at 10:15 for this severe thunderstorm warning there, which includes Nacogdoches County into portions of Panola and Shelby counties as well, and even into, it's at the southeast corner there of Rusk County, but the storm's actually about to exit there. So Timpson, Silas, down towards Grigsby, Swift area, Shady Grove. Expect your winds to pick up within the next few minutes. We could see a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. I think the strongest part of the storm, though, as Carson was mentioning, is this part here where it's kind of bowing out. That indicates the potential for some greater straight line winds. So Timpson, you have a few minutes before these stronger winds move into your area. Again, this is not a tornado. This is potential for some damaging straight line winds. Again, we've already seen some trees knocked down into power lines in parts of Nacogdoches County. So we're going to need to watch this pretty closely. But Timpson, within the next few minutes, expect your wind, or within the next few seconds really, expect your wind to really pick up. And then that will occur over in Bobo and Tenaha as well. Tenaha, you've got a little bit more time, but definitely just want to stay inside as these storms push on through. You also want to stay away from windows in case any debris goes flying. That's what you need to do if a severe thunderstorm warning is issued, which is what we have, of course. If a tornado warning is issued, you got to get into your tornado safe place. But we are not looking at that threat right now. So again, this is heading towards Shady Grove, Tenaha, Flat Fork, even the center area as well. Center, you still have a good bit of time as well before this gets to you, but we'll continue to track this. Let me put a tracker on it for us to get a better idea of timing. Again, Timpson's already over you as this pushes on through, but once this main line pushes through, that is when the severe weather threat comes to an end. Let's place this out here. Again, this is going to be at Oak Ridge at 9:48, which is in about 10 seconds. So right now, Silas now, Pleasant Ridge now, Timpson, like I mentioned now, Stockman 9:49, Swift 9:52, Meldrum at 9:55, Tennessee, Community, Waterman, and Antioch all at 9:55 as well. So again, this will head towards the center area. This will probably be over in center around 10:10 or so. So again, 60-mile-per-hour wind gust is the primary threat going forward with this storm. Let's take a look at velocity scans here. Seeing the wind velocity, no area of rotation that is concerning for us, so that is some good news. There's a couple of green spots, though, next to the red over by County Road 129. We'll watch that, but not really tight enough to be a tornado concern at this point. In fact, that area of rotation, which was right around here, is actually displaced from the storms, which are back over here. So that's likely not any tornado concern. That's just maybe one pocket of wind that is blowing in a different direction than the rest of the area. But let's take a look, expansive view here of the rest of the storms. Still got some storms down into Marion and Harrison counties. These have now crossed over in Marshall. So Marshall, you're done with the severe weather threat. The thunderstorm threat, though, not necessarily over for Marshall. We've still got a few areas of thunderstorms developing off to the west of Marshall over by Beckville. Again, you can see a couple of lightning bolts with that. So the severe weather threat ends as soon as that line pushes through your area. The thunderstorm threat ends a little bit later than that because there are a few storms that have developed out behind this main line which is in the more stable air. So it's not going to be severe in terms of wind gusts and tornadoes, but it could produce some small hail if they can get strong enough. Again, we have that severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Nacogdoches, Rusk, into southern Panola counties and western Shelby County. That runs until 10:15. Timpson, again, is right on top of you. Tenaha, within the next 5 minutes. Expect winds to pick up. It is possible you see a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. That would be severe limits, and that can also do some tree damage as well. So, again, Tenaha, center. You still have a couple of minutes. Flat Fork as well. Arcadia, down towards Aiken and Grigsby. And the Swift community. Expect your winds to be picking up within the next few minutes. But again, 60-mile-per-hour wind gust is the primary threat. Further down to the south, some lightning has picked up over by the Burke area and Diboll communities. Lufkin as well, you're getting into some of the heavier rain at this time. But this is also heading towards Huntington, Bald Hill, and the Manning area, and eventually into Zavala. That is not severe, but you could see a 30-mile-per-hour wind gust within this line as it continues to march off to the east. Let's put this in motion here, and you can see the line is moving fairly quickly off to the east, so that's some good news. Certainly not really causing a flash flooding concern because of how fast this is moving, but like Carson mentioned, it is bringing some much needed rainfall, even if it's not a whole lot of it. Again, we were talking about earlier about some isolated activity developing out ahead of the line. Again, you can see some showers flaring up in parts of San Augustine and Sabine counties, but they don't really amount to much as they cross into Louisiana. So, again, a much greater threat for severe storms is expected. In fact, let's put it on the national radar here to see this line of storms. It's not only in East Texas, it extends down towards the Houston area, to the Gulf Coast there, and extends all the way up to the north through Arkansas into Missouri and even Illinois, getting into some of the heavy rain and storms with this line. So it's a pretty expansive system, not looking overall too impressive at the moment. But again, some severe thunderstorm warnings here in East Texas, and then also some severe thunderstorm warnings up in northern Arkansas and southern Missouri. From what I understand, near the Fayetteville, Arkansas area, there has been possible tornado damage from a storm earlier. So some of these storms have done some damage. They've knocked down some trees here locally, some power lines as well. We haven't really had any confirmed reports of tornadoes with this activity at this time, but we'll continue to track this as it pushes off to the east. That severe thunderstorm warning again includes the city of Nacogdoches, or at least the eastern side of Nacogdoches, but it looks like the strongest part of the storm now is off to your east there. But again, over by Tenaha, Flat Fork, again, the strongest part of the storm is heading over towards you within the next few minutes. South side of Carthage, you're also getting some pretty heavy rain near the Pleasant Ridge area. You are included, Pleasant Ridge, in that severe thunderstorm warning. And the far southern part of the Carthage area, really U.S. Highway, the State Highway 149 loop there with US 59, that part of the storm near South Shelby Street is under that severe thunderstorm warning. 460-mile-per-hour wind gusts. You can see still some lightning within this activity, but overall there's not a whole lot of lightning with this. So that continues to be some good news there. The most lightning, in fact, is actually into deep East Texas, which makes sense. There's more instability in this area for thunderstorms. There's just less wind shear in this area for tornadic thunderstorms. So again, the wind shear and the instability, they're not balancing with each other to produce more widespread severe weather event here in East Texas. That is why we really haven't gone any higher than a medium threat for us with this system, because again, there's been some timing concerns with the best instability aligning with the greatest wind shear. We just have not seen that. Now, we've seen that in a couple of spots where we've seen those damaging wind gusts, but for the most part, again, we haven't really we haven't had any tornado warnings for us, which has been some good news. Turn on the shear rate now. You can still see there's some higher winds down in parts of Angelina, southern Nacogdoches County, into western portions of Shelby County as well, and southern Panola counties. But again, it's not really amounting to much in the way of tornadic activity, but we do have had those reports of some straight line wind damage there, or what was likely straight line wind damage, I should say, in parts of northern Nacogdoches County. But again, over by Bobo and Saxet, this is the strongest part of the storm. heading towards County Road 4688, FM 947 West near the Tennessee community. Again, expect your winds to really start ramping up within the next few minutes here. And again, that's where the strongest part of the storm is, over by you in Bobo. This is really riding right along the U.S. Highway 84 corridor over towards Tenaha. And this part of the storm that's the strongest will eventually head towards County Road 4475 and FM 699 over by the Paxton area. Paxton, you're included in the severe thunderstorm warning. You're not really seeing any thunderstorm activity right now, but expect within the next few minutes to start getting in on some thunderstorms out there. So again, strongest part of the storm right now is moving through the Bobo area. Tenaha, you're next within the next 5 to 10 minutes or so, and then into Flat Fork and Paxton as well. So we'll be continuing to track these storms as they push on through the area. But right now, not overly impressive in terms of the radar presentation. As they cross into Louisiana, though, and the instability continues to increase, we'll continue to watch these storms over the next few hours. Carson.
Yes, so we will certainly watch for that, Andrew. And again, let's go ahead and kind of recap everything we've been talking about over the last 30 minutes or so. And the tornado watch, it's valid through about 1 o'clock, and these counties continue to be dropped. I would not be surprised at 10, maybe 10:30, if Gregg and Rusk County were dropped from this tornado watch, because the threat, it's not there. It's right along the Texas-Louisiana border. And I do expect some strengthening of these thunderstorms as they cross the border into Louisiana and Arkansas. That's where the main threat is going to be at this point. But once again, tornado watch, no warnings or anything like that from a tornado standpoint, but we are watching these areas to the east. Now, 50s, 60s, that's rain cooled air. We still have some thunderstorms ongoing for our western and central counties, but my main concern are the areas where we have the 70s. So places like Carthage, Center, Hemphill. Your severe weather threat's not done yet, so you need to be weather aware probably for the next 2 hours. But once we can get this storm out of the region, we can give you the all clear. You're still getting rained on in our western and central counties, but the dry line is off to the west, and that will be moving closer in our direction here over the next couple of hours, as I mentioned. But this line of storms continues to meander its way eastward at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. And once we get it out, we can give you the all clear from a severe weather standpoint. But as Andrew mentioned, the rain chances will probably last through at least the early to middle part of the afternoon, depending on what part of East Texas you're going to be in. Now, let's go ahead and look at Futurecast real quick. Once again, as you can see right here, through about 11 o'clock, we're still dealing with the storm threat. Of course, we'll be live on East Texas Live here in a couple of hours, so that will likely be our next update unless something were to change and we get a brief spin-up tornado, but that does not look like the case right now. But we will be watching these storms very carefully as they move through our eastern counties. That does include Sabine, Shelby, and St. Augustine County. Never count out severe weather in Sabine County. We've learned that all too often here in East Texas, but drier air should start to move into our western counties by about noontime. Now, I do expect at least the partly cloudy skies to stick around through about 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon, but once we get the clouds out, the temperatures are going to plummet into the 40s tonight. Through about 3 o'clock, we're still seeing passing clouds, and the atmosphere could actually recover a little bit before we make that big drop into the 40s, as I mentioned, for your Wednesday morning, or Thursday morning, I should say. However, we'll still see a couple of clouds here and there tomorrow morning. I don't expect any rain in the forecast so far. But let's get you a radar reset. Again, one severe thunderstorm warning through Nacogdoches and Shelby County that we are tracking right now. And we will have to keep an eye out for 60-mile-per-hour winds right along this line here. But notice the lack of lightning. That's a sign that the instability is not that great here, which is good news. We got a lot of shear, little instability. There's an imbalance there, so these storms are not thriving like they had the potential to once do this morning. But that begins to change as you increase the instability off to our east. But there's your severe thunderstorm warning polygon there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the National Weather Service starts to trim this out of Nacogdoches County. It's still possible, and just to the north of Chirino right there, that we could still see damaging wind gusts at about 60 miles per hour, but that's probably valid over the next 5 to 10 minutes. Once that moves out, we're going to start to see this rain improve and conditions improve dramatically. But we give you the all clear in Nacogdoches. If you were by that damage in Appleby, again, a tree fell across a power line, and that's why we're having power outage issues in the community of Appleby right there. Once that rain has passed, you're going to be in the all clear as well. Garrison, Timpson, you guys are still seeing heavy rain, so I caution against trying to get outside right now. Just not the smartest thing to be doing. But Center, Carthage, and Tenaha, as we mentioned, near Highway 84 and the 59 intersection there, we're still dealing with that threat of severe weather at least over the next 10 to 15 minutes. Now, this warning will be allowed to expire at about 10:15, but you're probably already seeing that heavy rain in Timpson. We'll get a report from our storm spotter in Timpson of how heavy that rain will be today a little later on, but we should see some beneficial rain for Tenaha, Flat Fork, Paxton, Texas, Folsom, Texas, North Jericho, Texas, Antioch. You guys will be in line with this storm here in the not too distant future. So one more storm track, and then I think Andrew and I are going to take a little break here, and we'll get you ready for East Texas Live. But this is, again, moving to the northeast at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. So we'll put one more track on this storm here. That's about accurate there. Tenaha, 1001, so it's right on top of you. You're out of time in Tenaha if you want to get indoors, but if you're watching this on the computer or the app, you probably are indoors. 1010 for Center, Joaquin at 1017, Logansport at 1020, Mansfield at 1044. Again, this warning goes out until about 1015, so we should start to see these storms move out of our area and into Louisiana, probably starting within the next hour or so. But Tornado Watch, that is out till 1 o'clock. We'll continue to keep a close eye on it. If you are still in the Tornado Watch, I need you to be weather aware at least over the next 2 or so hours, 3 hours if you're in it until 1 o'clock. But Greg, Rusk County, I think your tornado threat is generally over. It's just a matter of time before they drop you guys from the warning. But Cass, you guys are probably done. My main concern is this area right here in deep East Texas, St. Augustine, Shelby, eastern Panola County, even eastern Harrison County and Sabine County. That's the area we're going to have to watch over the next hour or so. Well, the good news is, at the beginning of this live stream, we thought that a tornado warning was going to be issued for Rusk and Panola County. Well, that wasn't the case, so hopefully we can continue to keep this luck up and dodge a bullet with these severe thunderstorm warnings. But one thing to note, deep south areas of Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana, we are expecting some significant severe weather a little later on today. So if you know a cousin, maybe an uncle, an aunt, your grandparents, your parents, what have you, make sure you give them a call and make sure they're weather aware, watching their favorite station. If they have a NOAA weather radio, make sure they turn it on for this afternoon, evening, and overnight tonight, because that's where the most intense storms are going to occur. Otherwise, meteorologist Andrew Salmon and I, we will be here in the weather studio. Next live broadcast will be on East Texas Live on KETK. That starts as 11, runs through 12, so we will have the latest on these East Texas storms then. Until then, we're going to get some rest. Thank you guys for joining us here on our KETK.com digital live stream.